Cine lenses are notoriously expensive, probably because the Hollywood elite doesn't want us regular guys to butt in on their business. I'm totally joking about that, but in all seriousness, $400,000 for a 12 lens kit is crazy. That is why I am happy when companies such as 7artisans come out with products that are much more affordable and still good. These are two Cine lenses that I'm going to review in this video: the 85mm T2 and the 50mm T2. And because they're so similar, I'm just going to do this in one video. So let's start by seeing how these things come packaged. The answer is in black boxes with thumb screws, manuals, and packed in cushy padding. The lenses are solid metal and glass, heavy, very well built with no electronic connections, built-in gear rings, the stuff you would expect from a Cine lens. The rear has a metal mount, no weather sealing, and overall there is minimal branding and nonsense. The aperture rings on these lenses are smooth, but the one on the 85mm is extremely stiff to turn. Focus rings are also very smooth with about 270 degrees of rotation for fine-tuning your focus, and again the 85mm is stiffer just slightly to rotate than the 50mm. Around the front, the lenses are a little different. Both have 82mm filter threads, but the 50mm has a deeply recessed small front lens element, while the 85 has a built-in lens hood with a larger front lens element. They look great on the camera no matter which one you choose. But what about performance? I decided to take these two lenses out on a little day trip down to San Antonio with my wife, and I put the 85mm on my FX30 and on a gimbal. I put the 50mm on my Sony a7C, and here's what I got. Okay, before I tear these two lenses apart in terms of performance, I do have to say this. You would be hard-pressed to find cinema lenses anywhere near the price point of these two lenses, especially T2 lenses. So there is something to be said about budget options, and obviously all lenses have compromises. Even the best $2,000 expensive lenses out there have some sort of shortcoming, and in many cases multiple shortcomings. So I'm going to talk about the performance of these two lenses, but bear in mind that these are budget price points. So first things first, sharpness on these lenses is excellent, at least in the center and the mid frame. I can't say the same about the corners. And to prove that, here is the 85mm next to my Sigma 85mm Art wide open at f1.4. It's just as sharp in the center. It's impressive. But the corners, yeah, they're not great wide open. The Sigmas are astonishingly good. Colors and contrast were great on these lenses. I didn't color grade any of the video samples, so you can see the difference between S-Cine tone on the FX30 and no color profile on the A7C. Bouquet performance was good as well. It's not too distracting. It's pretty smooth, although it does cat eye into the corners and the edges, but that's not a deal breaker, at least for me. And vignetting performance was great, a non-issue on the APS-C camera, just slightly noticeable on the full frame. But there are 3 optical problems with these lenses. Number 1 is the chromatic aberration is very noticeable. Especially wide open, you get a lot of it, even in the center of the frame with contrasting edges. You could stop the lens down to help, but who wants to do that? I think the internal construction of these lenses is very simple, and 7artisans probably didn't do much in terms of anti-chromatic aberration coatings. Number 2, the flare performance is not top tier. In fact, it's pretty bad at times. You saw this shot where there is just ghosting and flare and a rainbow in the entire frame. It's artsy if you want it, but it's not ideal for filming into bright backgrounds. And this is even with the recessed built-in lens hoods. The 50mm was a little bit better in terms of flare performance, but not by much. And number 3, the focus breathing. One of the biggest things that most companies that make cinema lenses focus on is focus breathing. In fact, Sony recently has been focusing on this with almost every new lens release. But I'm sad to report that with these lenses, you get a lot of focus breathing. It's a shame. The last little negative that I'll mention doesn't relate to optics, but I found that the mounts on both lenses seem to be slightly loose on whatever camera body I put them on. Not a huge deal, but it's noticeable, especially on the 85mm, because the focus ring is so stiff. But if all of those things are not enough to turn you off of these 2 lenses, well, I have to say that they are impressive in terms of what you can produce with them, especially if you pair them with a capable camera such as this FX30. I do wish that when I was out shooting I had a follow focus system on it, and I also wish that I had maybe someone to pull focus for me, because that was a challenge, especially when you're running around with a gimbal. But you can't argue with the results. It is a different look, and I have to say these were very, very fun lenses to shoot with, especially the 85mm on this FX30, because you get 1.5x crop and it's a challenge to focus, but man, the results are very, very cool in terms of background bokeh. The other thing about reviewing cinema lenses is that oddly, flaws are viewed as positives at times. Swirly bokeh, huge blue flares with anamorphic lenses, these are negatives that video creators at times desire. So maybe the chromatic aberration, the crazy flare, and focus breathing could be viewed as charming and desirable in the eyes of another. You just never know. What I do know is that for $350 or so for the 50mm and $450-ish for the 85mm, these are great cinema options. Excellent build minus the mount, smooth rings with gears and plenty of rotation, good colors. There's a lot to like for a budget price. Out of the 2, the 85mm is by far my favorite. Now, these are not the only 2 lenses that 7artisans makes in terms of Cine lenses. In fact, I have a separate series. This is the Spectrum line, and there's a Vision line. I have 4 lenses in that I have yet to review, but I'll link these 2 lenses down in the description below. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below, and thank you guys so much for watching. Thanks for all of your likes, all of your comments, and your support. Stay tuned for more. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.